The battlefield burned like a dying sun. Smoke rose in thick dark waves, and the ground shook with every blast. Human soldier Ethan Ward moved through the ruins with fast careful steps, his armor cracked, his energy low, but his mind sharp. He had been separated from his squad during the ambush, and now he walked alone in enemy territory. Explosions flashed in the sky, turning the world orange for a moment. Ethan breathed slowly, trying to calm his racing heart. He had seen strange things in this war, but nothing prepared him for what he found next. A soft crying sound echoed from behind a fallen metal pillar. At first Ethan thought it was some kind of trap. No alien ever cried in the open during battle. But the sound was real, full of pain and fear. Ethan stepped closer and pushed the metal aside. What he saw froze him in place. There, lying on the cracked ground, was a small alien child. Her skin glowed pale blue, and her eyes were bright silver. Her royal robe was torn, and she held her stomach where purple blood leaked out slowly. Ethan recognized her from mission reports. She was Princess Lyra, daughter of the alien queen. A living symbol of their empire. A child who must never fall into human hands. But she was just a child, shaking, hurt, and alone. When she saw Ethan, she tried to crawl away, her voice weak. "Please, don't hurt me," she whispered. Ethan dropped his weapon instantly. "It's okay," he said softly, "I'm not here to kill you." Lyra blinked, confused. Humans and her people had been enemies for generations. She had always been taught that humans were monsters. Creatures who smiled while killing. But this human was different. His eyes were calm, and his voice carried no hate. Ethan looked at her wound. If she stayed here, she would die within minutes. He knew what would happen if alien soldiers saw him carrying their princess. They would shoot him on sight. But he also knew he could not leave her here. He gently lifted her into his arms. Lyra gasped in pain but held on to his armor. Her small hands shook, but she did not let go. Ethan whispered, "I've got you, you'll be safe." Then the ground trembled again, but this time it was not an explosion. It was footsteps, heavy and many. Alien soldiers marched through the smoke, forming a wide circle around Ethan. Their weapons glowed with deadly purple light. Their eyes filled with rage and disbelief. A human holding their princess. A human touching royal blood. A crime no one had ever dared to commit. But Ethan did not drop her. He held Lyra close, shielding her with his own body. The soldiers shouted commands he did not understand. Their voices shook with anger, fear, and confusion. Lyra opened her eyes and whispered weakly. "Stop, please, he is helping me." The soldiers hesitated, but only for a moment. Then a cold breeze swept across the battlefield. The soldiers fell silent. Every weapon lowered slightly. Every face changed from anger to dread. Because the alien queen herself stepped out of the smoke. Tall, powerful, her armor glowing like fire under glass. Her eyes locked onto Ethan. Then onto her wounded daughter in his arms. And for the first time in her long ruthless life, the queen froze. She did not attack. She did not scream. She simply stared, shocked and speechless. A human was holding her child. A human was protecting her. And he refused to let her go. The battlefield waited in breathless silence. The fate of two species hung on what would happen next. The alien queen stood like a statue carved from fire and steel. Every warrior around her dropped to one knee, their weapons lowered in fear and respect. But her eyes never left Ethan. The human who dared hold her daughter. The human who refused to let go. Ethan felt every heartbeat like a drum inside his chest. He knew one wrong move could end his life. But he tightened his hold on Lyra, keeping her safe behind the shield of his body. Lyra breathed weakly against his armor. Her silver eyes half open. her small voice barely louder than a whisper. "Mother," she said, her fingers trembling, "please, don't hurt him." The queen's expression changed for the first time. Not anger, not relief. Something deeper, something she did not understand. A human saving her child. It made no sense. It broke every law, every belief, every story her people told for generations. One of her generals stepped forward, his voice sharp like a blade. "Your Majesty, command us, we will kill him now." Ethan braced himself. He did not want to fight. He could not win. But he would not drop Lyra. She felt his fear and held on to him tighter. Her frail voice cracked, "No, don't hurt him." The queen raised one hand. Instant silence fell across the battlefield. Even the air seemed to stop moving. She studied Ethan carefully. His face was tired, his armor damaged, his body shaking from stress. But his eyes told another story. A story of choice, not accident. A story of a soldier who protected a child just because she needed help. "Human," the queen said slowly, her voice deep and powerful, "why do you touch my daughter?" Ethan's throat felt dry, but he forced himself to speak clearly. She was bleeding, she would have died. He kept his words simple, honest, without fear. "I won't let a child die in front of me." The queen narrowed her eyes. Humans were known to lie. To trick, to deceive. But this human, something about him felt different. The general stepped forward again, furious. "He is using the princess as a shield, he is human, they always lie." The queen's gaze turned sharp. "If he meant to harm her, she would already be dead," she replied coldly. Ethan felt a small pressure on his chest. Lyra was moving, trying to lift her head. "Mother, he saved me, please, help him too." The queen inhaled slowly. The sight of her wounded daughter, clinging to a human, broke something inside her. For the first time, she felt unsure of her own judgment. She took one step forward. Every guard raised their weapons again. But she lifted her hand, commanding stillness. "Human," she said, "give her to me." Ethan didn't move. His arms stayed locked around the princess. He knew if he let go before she received medical care, she might collapse again. "I will give her to you," Ethan said softly, "but not here, not like this." He looked into the queen's eyes without fear. She needs a healer now, not more fighting. A murmur spread among the soldiers. A human giving orders. A human protecting their princess. Unthinkable, impossible, shocking. The queen stepped even closer. Now only a few steps away. Her presence felt like heat from a sun. Lyra reached out a shaking hand toward her mother. "Please, he is not bad, he saved me." The queen closed her eyes for a moment. Her decision formed in silence, heavy and dangerous. Then she spoke, loud enough for the entire army to hear. "No one will harm the human." Gasps echoed through the battlefield. The general shouted in protest. But the queen silenced him with a single deadly glance. She pointed toward the palace. "Bring the healers," she ordered, "prepare the royal chamber." Then she looked at Ethan again. "Human, walk with me." Ethan exhaled slowly, a breath he had been holding for too long. He stood up carefully with Lyra in his arms. And for the first time in history, a human walked beside the alien queen. Under her protection. With the fate of two species hanging in the balance. The palace doors opened with a hiss as Ethan walked inside, still carrying Princess Lyra in his arms. Alien guards surrounded him from every side, their armor glowing with warning lights. But none dared attack. The queen's command still echoed through the halls like thunder. "No one will harm the human." The palace interior was alive with strange colors, walls shifting softly like living stone. Lights pulsed under the floor with every step, reacting to the queen's presence. Ethan felt out of place in every way. A human in the enemy's royal home. Carrying their princess. Breathing their air. Trusting their queen. It felt unreal, yet he kept moving. The healers rushed forward as soon as they saw Lyra. Their robes shimmering like liquid silver. They bowed to the queen, then gently took the girl from Ethan's arms. Lyra reached for Ethan weakly before they carried her away. "Don't go," she whispered. "I'm not going anywhere," Ethan said softly, his voice steady. The queen watched this with unreadable eyes. She followed the healers into the medical chamber, and Ethan was ordered to wait outside with guards standing around him. He could hear the healers speaking in fast alien language, machines humming, energy beams scanning her wound. Minutes felt like hours. The tension pressed on his chest like a heavy stone. Finally the door opened. The queen stepped out slowly, her expression calmer but still sharp. "She lives," she said, her voice softer than before. "Your actions saved her life." Ethan let out a breath of relief. He had not realized how tightly he had been holding himself together. "Thank you," he said, but the queen raised her hand. "No," she replied firmly, "it is I who must thank you." The guards shifted uncomfortably, unused to such words from their ruler. The queen studied Ethan with intense curiosity. "You could have left her to die," she said slowly. "You had every reason to run, every reason to fear us." Ethan shook his head. "She's a child," he said simply, "her life matters." The queen stepped closer. "Your species killed thousands of my people," she said coldly. "You burned our cities, you poisoned our skies. And your people did the same to humans," Ethan replied calmly. "War makes everyone blind." The queen's jaw tightened. She had expected excuses, lies, fear. But this human spoke with honesty and strange courage. "Why?" she asked again, more quietly this time, "why save the daughter of your enemy?" Ethan met her gaze without looking away. "Because no child deserves to die in war," he said, "and because humans protect the weak." The queen's eyes widened slightly. She had heard stories about humans, but none like this. Her generals told her humans were cruel, greedy, emotionless. But this human spoke of mercy, protection, and life. It challenged everything she believed. Before she could respond, the medical door opened again. A healer bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, she is awake." The queen entered the chamber, but she stopped when she saw Lyra reaching toward the door. "Where is the human?" Lyra whispered, her voice soft but clear, "I want him here." The queen seemed surprised. She motioned for Ethan to enter. As he stepped inside, Lyra smiled weakly. "You stayed," she said, her silver eyes warm. "Of course I stayed," Ethan replied gently. He moved closer, and she held his hand with her small glowing fingers. The healers watched in shock at the trust she showed him. Then something happened that none expected. Lyra looked up at her mother. "Don't hurt him," she said, "he is good." The queen stood silent, torn between centuries of hatred and the words of her own child. Ethan watched her, knowing her next decision could start peace, or destroy him instantly. After a long moment, the queen spoke, her voice deep with new meaning. "This human," she said slowly, "shall remain under my protection." The guards froze, stunned. The healers exchanged worried glances. But Lyra smiled, relieved. And Ethan knew a line had been crossed, a wall broken, a new path opened. For the first time in history, an alien queen had protected a human. And the truth was beginning to reshape their world. The palace grew quiet as Princess Lyra rested. But outside her chamber, tension moved through the halls like a silent storm. Alien guards watched Ethan with nervous eyes. Some with anger, some with confusion, and a few with fear. A human standing beside their queen was something no one had ever imagined. Ethan stayed near the doorway, ready to protect Lyra again if needed. The queen stood beside him, her presence strong and commanding. For a moment, there was a strange peace between them. Fragile, uncertain, but real. Then the floor beneath them trembled. Lights flickered, alarms echoed across the palace walls. A guard rushed forward, panic in his voice. "Your Majesty, the outer gates have been breached." The queen's eyes narrowed. "Who dares attack my palace?" she demanded. The guard bowed his head. "General Korvac, he has betrayed the throne." Ethan stepped back in shock. Korvac, the same general who wanted Ethan dead, had returned with force. A warlord who hated humans, hated peace, hated weakness. And he wanted the throne for himself. The queen turned to Ethan. Her voice sharp and serious. "My soldiers will not trust you," she said, "and Korvac will use that against us." Ethan nodded. "I don't need their trust," he replied, "I just need a gun." For the first time, the queen gave a small, brief smile. It vanished quickly, replaced by determination. She handed him a sleek alien weapon, glowing purple along its edges. "Follow me," she said, "protect my daughter." As they moved through the palace, the sounds of battle grew louder. Sparks flew from the walls, alien warriors clashed in the corridors. Korvac's forces pushed forward without mercy. Their armor black and jagged, their weapons built for destruction. The queen led the charge, her blade slicing through the air like lightning. Her movements were fast, deadly, precise. Ethan fought beside her, adapting quickly to the alien weapon. Every shot he fired was to protect the queen and the princess behind them. And alien soldiers began to notice. The human was not running, not hiding, not betraying. He was fighting for their royal family. A young alien soldier whispered in disbelief. "The human, he fights for us." But there was no time for more. Korvac himself crashed through the doors of the main hall. A giant warrior with crimson armor and burning eyes. "Traitor queen," he roared, "you protect the human over your own people." The queen stepped forward, blade ready. "I protect honor," she replied, "something you lost long ago." Korvac laughed, a deep cruel sound that shook the walls. "Then you will die with your pet human." He charged, his massive weapon swinging in a deadly arc. Ethan jumped aside just in time and fired, but Korvac's armor absorbed the blast. The queen struck back, her blade hitting Korvac's arm, forcing him to step back. The battle raged through the hall, sparks flying with every clash of metal and energy. Korvac was strong, too strong. He pushed Ethan to the ground and slammed the queen against the wall. "You are weak," he growled, "and your rule ends here." Before he could strike the killing blow, a small voice echoed across the chamber. "Stop." Everyone froze. Lyra stood in the doorway, weak but alive, leaning on a healer for support. Her eyes glowed bright silver with anger and fear. Korvac turned toward her. "A child should not witness this," he said cruelly, "you should have died on the battlefield." Ethan's heart filled with fire. He pushed himself up, grabbed the fallen weapon, and charged. "Don't touch her," he shouted. He fired at Korvac's exposed side, the blast finally cracking the armor. The queen seized the moment, driving her blade forward with all her strength. Korvac collapsed with a furious roar, the throne room shaking as he fell. Silence followed, heavy and overwhelming. Lyra ran forward and threw her arms around the queen. The queen held her close, then looked at Ethan. In her eyes was something new. Respect, trust, and something deeper. "You saved us both," she said, her voice steady and warm. "This battle is over because of you." And for the first time ever. Alien soldiers bowed their heads to a human. Korvac's heavy body hit the palace floor with a deep echo. The sound rolled through the hall like thunder. Alien soldiers lowered their weapons, shocked by what they had just witnessed. The traitor general had fallen, and a human had helped defeat him. Ethan stood breathing hard, sweat on his forehead, dust on his armor. He wasn't sure if he should raise his hands in surrender or stand tall. But the queen stepped toward him before anyone else could react. She looked at him not as an enemy, not as a stranger, but as someone who had saved her kingdom, her throne, and most importantly, her daughter. Lyra ran to Ethan next, her small arms wrapping around his waist. "You protected us," she said softly, her voice shaking with emotion. Ethan bent down carefully, patting her back. "I promised I wouldn't leave you," he replied. The queen watched the moment with deep eyes. Something inside her, something she thought war had killed long ago, began to wake again. Hope. She turned to her soldiers and raised her voice. "Today, a human fought beside us," she declared. "He saved our princess, he saved your queen, and he saved our future." Her voice echoed through the palace walls. The soldiers looked at one another, confused, unsure, but curious. Never before had their queen spoken in defense of a human. Never before had a human earned such honor. Ethan felt all eyes on him. He swallowed hard, wondering if he truly belonged here. But Lyra held his hand tighter, grounding him. The queen stepped forward until she stood only a breath away from him. Her tone softened, becoming almost gentle. "You risked your life for a child who was not yours," she said. "You risked it again for a people who hated you." Ethan shook his head slowly. "Hate doesn't change anything," he said, "but kindness can." The queen exhaled, a long slow breath carrying years of anger and grief. "For generations, humans and my people have been enemies," she said. "Our stories say humans are cruel, violent, without heart." She looked at Lyra holding Ethan's hand. "But perhaps our stories were wrong." The hall fell silent, waiting. Every warrior, every healer, every servant watched their queen, wondering what she would decide. Wondering if this moment would bring peace or spark another war. Then the queen lifted her blade high. The symbol of her power, her rule, her voice. She lowered it toward Ethan, not in threat, but in honor. "From this day forward," she said, her voice strong and clear, "this human is under my protection. No one will harm him, no one will question him, and no one will forget what he has done." Gasps filled the room. Alien soldiers dropped to one knee, not for Ethan, but for the queen's command. But in doing so, they accepted the human standing beside her. Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest. He wasn't used to honor, he wasn't used to bows. But he was grateful, deeply grateful. As the hall calmed, the queen turned to him again. "You may return to your people," she said, "and I will send word of what happened here. Maybe this will be the start of peace." Ethan looked down at Lyra, who tightened her grip on his hand. "Will you come back?" she asked, her silver eyes full of hope. Ethan smiled softly. "If you want me to," he said. Lyra nodded quickly. "Then promise," she whispered. "I promise," Ethan replied. The queen placed a gentle hand on Lyra's shoulder. Her expression proud yet emotional. "You have changed more than you know, human," she said, "not just today, but tomorrow as well." Ethan glanced around the hall one last time. At the soldiers who now looked at him with respect. At the queen who had become an ally. At the princess who had become a friend. He realized something important. Maybe humans and aliens were not so different after all. And as he prepared to leave, the palace lights glowed brighter. The air felt lighter. A new chapter had begun. A chapter where kindness won the battle that war never could.